So howdy, hope you're having a fine day. This video is the third of 4 videos on building an acoustic guitar. In this video, I'll be doing the assembly work of the body of the guitar. So hope you find it enjoyable, and thanks for hitting the play button. We do appreciate it. Leave us a comment, like, subscribe. You know the routine here on YouTube, okay? Thanks again for watching, and hope you have a fine day. So in this video we're doing the assembly, and I have the sides of the guitar. The sides are bent. They're in the building jig. You saw in my last video bending the sides of the guitar. I've got the tail block put in, and I've got the neck block glued in. So now I'm adding kerfing, and what kerfing is thin strips of wood to add some reinforcement to the back and sides. If you just glued the sides and the back, or the top and the back to the sides, basically you wouldn't have a whole lot of structure, a lot of strength there at all. The guitar would just come apart pretty quickly. So the kerfing, this adds more gluing surface. It doesn't affect the playability or the sound of the guitar, because I'm not adding a whole lot of wood here. Just some thin wood strips. These are made out of basswood. They have a back cut on them so that you can bend them easily, and you're simply gluing those in place. Now to glue these, or to hold them in place, I'm using clothespins. And clothespins are a great little tool in the shop for gluing together small objects. Ours keep a whole bend of them around, and be surprised how often you can use those for gluing. Again, when you're gluing wood together, you don't need a lot of pressure, just enough pressure to hold it firmly in place, no air pockets. The glue, good quality wood glue will do a lot of the work for you as far as expanding and basically with a little bit of gap filling, but on top of that, providing a strong surface. And here I am putting the clothespins, the clamps, around the top, and you can see I've already glued most of the kerfings in. The back, they're all glued in. This is the top that I'm gluing on right now. And again, I'll work myself around and do that. And from there, basically, once the kerfings are all glued in and dried, then we can actually glue the top and the back on. Now, in this video here, I didn't show gluing the top and the back on. I wish I had have. I just didn't have the camera on. But it is pretty simple woodworking techniques of gluing two pieces of wood together. So again, the wood takes a little while to dry, or the glue does. So I'll let this set for the afternoon and then go from there. Now you can see here the kerfings are all glued in, clamps are off. You can see how they look inside the guitar. Now what I'm doing on the neck block is I'm routing, or basically I'm making a channel here for the truss rod to go through. The neck on this guitar will be a mortise and tenon joint. It's basically a bolt-on type of neck, but I have to make that joint for it to fit into. And this is all hand work. I'll use a drill to drill out my pilot holes, but then I'll hand chisel this down using my Narix chisels here. You gotta have sharp chisels. If not, you're just spinning your wheels, and it makes it frustrating. So excuse the workbench in the shop. It is totally a mess. You get right in the middle of doing a task like this, and you just don't want to stop to clean up. You want to get things done. So the shop will be pretty messy throughout this entire video. Again, it's kind of working those edges, making my channel with the truss rod. Don't cut yourself there. All right. Now I love this part here because the top of the guitar is glued onto the sides, and you can see the bracing that's in the soundboard, the X bracing that provides structural strength, and also where you put those braces determine the sound. Now I've got a previous video on how to build a soundboard, so I invite you to go check that out. That has all the details on how I cut the bracings down and how I kind of get the board prepared. What I'm installing here is the pickups. I am not a big fan of electronics in a guitar, an acoustic guitar. That is a preamp with a battery and volume and tone controls and all that. Because you know, a good acoustic instrument should last generations and decades, and electronics don't. And once you have the electronics go bad, you've got a big cutout on the side of the guitar where the preamp is and all that. So I like using passive pickups that will last forever. And you can always use a preamp outside of the guitar. So take your jack, put your 1/4-inch audio cable in there, and run it to a preamp. You have more options that way. Now here I put my 3 pickups. This is a triple pickup, kind of unique. And one is right behind the A string where the guitar is, and one is up in the waist of the guitar to pick up more of the treble sound, and I've got one down kind of in the lower bout to pick up the bass sounds. So there's a reason why these 3 pickups are where they are, and it's for getting a good balanced sound and good balanced attack on the guitar. Put some tie wraps on here to keep the wires nice and neat as well. And again, these type pickups will last a lifetime. You may have to replace the end pin, the jack there, because after a while they'll wear out with a lot of use. But the pickups themselves, and plus, if you did want to ever change it out, you can replace these. Now here I'm back working that channel, and now I'm working the actual joint that the neck will go into. And again, drill this out. It's about 7/8 of an inch deep, and I'm simply taking my chisels and I'm working that joint. Now the top of the guitar has perfings, which are little decorative pieces of wood, or wood fibers, but they're too stiff to just bend around the guitar. What I do, I take my curling jig here, and I my hot iron, get that wet, and I have to pre-bend these so they fit the contour of the guitar, especially the cutout, the cutaway area, because that is a pretty tight curve right there. And again, these are decorative. Most guitars, most fine guitars have some sort of decorative wood perfings. And this is a standard herringbone, which a lot of guitars use, or something similar to it. And I don't make these. These come from a supply house, Luthier Supply House. These came from Stumac, which is a great company to deal with out of Ohio. Again, working that around to the shape of the guitar. Not going too long or too hard, because you can still break it, but to give it that good shape. And so that's all shaped nice, ready to go, as you can see. And now we're going to go over to the router table. I've got a straight bit, and I'm routing any excess wood that's off the back or the top of the guitar to make it nice and flush. Once I've done the straight bit, I'm then going to put a rabbiting bit and start cutting a small channel on the back sides and on the top on the sides there to accept the bindings and the perfing that you just saw me bend in the last video segment. Now here's the weird thing about it. Guitar tops and backs are not flat. There's an arc to them. So as you route this, I have to kind of hand route it. I'm using a guide there, a guide bearing, but it's not totally flat, as you can see, so you have to kind of just use some skill and have experience in doing this and working that around. Making sure you're going in the right direction with the wood so you don't have tear out as you route going across that. As you can see, the back and the top are on, and it's starting to look like a real guitar, isn't it? And now from there, the channels are done. I've routed those channels. Now I'm taking a couple of carving knives, because when you're working with spruce is a very strong wood. It's strong enough for guitar tops and for piano backs and such, but it tends to have a lot of fuzzing, meaning that when you run a router around it, it'll kind of fuzz the edge a little bit. And since my perfings and my bindings need to be perfect, I will sit there and I'll cut out the channel as well, smooth it out using the knife, because you only have one shot at this. If I jack this part up, I'm starting over, and I really at this point don't want to start over because you put a lot of time and effort into doing this. So I use this knife and kind of hand carve those channels. I use a chisel as well. If you look on the right side of the screen there, you'll see wrapped in a rubber band a bunch of really fine woodworking files that are really great for getting into detailed areas to make a nice smooth surface. Now I've got my bindings, which is a white ABS binding. There's different kinds on different guitars, white, black, one's made out of wood. Since this is a ABS product, I'll start off by putting a little CA glue up at the top in that binding there. I like using CA glue for this because, one, it cures quickly, it's got a great hold, and it also is non-volatile. It doesn't react to your finishes. So if I spray lacquer on this guitar, or use even polyurethane, or use shellac or whatever, I'm not going to get any streaking or any spots because of any squeeze out from the glue. And then I take, you can't clamp this, so I take blue tape. Then I'm going to tape it all the way around, slowly working a little bit of glue and working that channel in there. Have a nice flush product. And this is the part that's enjoyable because now you're starting to see what your guitar is actually going to look like finished. As you build it, you have an idea in your head. And let me tell you this, I don't build guitars off of plans. It's kind of in my head. I've got a basic plan for the soundboard and for the back and the top and for the neck. But the small details, it's all measurement as you go. And here you see the top. And you see my, so still needs some sanding, a little bit of finish work, but you can see the perfings and the bindings are now in there. And it's starting to look like a guitar, a finished guitar. So it's really beautiful at this point. And now here's a very important step. This is using putting a bridge tool. It has to be perfect angle or perfect distance from the 1st fret to the 12th fret and the 12th fret to the bridge, plus tonation, like 1/16 to 3/16 of an inch. And this tool allows me to set the bridge perfectly. Because if you don't have a good set bridge, the tonation will be off, the guitar will play horribly, it'll be flat or sharp. And once I've got that bridge set, I've got my tape line down where it's going to be, I'm now gluing the bridge in place. Now this is, in woodworking, this is known as a butt joint, where basically you're putting a flat piece of wood against another piece of wood. This is also the one part of the guitar that'll have the most stress upon it. About 150 to 200 pounds of stress will be on this plate here once the strings are put on and tuned. I'm taking a straight edge to make sure my bridge left to right is in the right location. I've already put glue in the back of this. And now, putting a piece of wood inside the sound hole to hold my clamp in place. And then I'll take 3 4-inch C-clamps to get in there and to start gluing this bridge down. Now the problem with C-clamps is as you turn that screw to clamp it down, it can actually move the piece of wood you're trying to glue, because there's not just a torquing force going down, there's also a twisting force on it. And again, once you glue a bridge in place, you sure don't want to take it off because it can damage the top of the guitar, the soundboard. I've also put tape over the bridge, so as I clamp it, not to damage the bridge itself. And while I'm doing this, let me tell you a little bit about the guitar. This is a Grand Auditorium cutaway guitar, so it's a little smaller than a large dreadnought, but the lower waist, lower bout, so the lower bout is a little wider than a dreadnought guitar. I'm now starting to put the clamps in here. And talk about gluing wood together. I see people glue 2 pieces of wood together and they just crank the clamps down like crazy. Again, you don't need to do that. You just need good, secure contact between both surfaces. Make sure the surfaces are clean, of course, and make sure they're smooth. Make sure they're not so smooth that the pores have all been closed up through sanding. So you set the bridge in, making sure there's no squeeze out as I clamp this down. Squeeze out meaning, glue that squeezes out from the side. And again, on this video, I didn't spend a great deal of time showing you small details. I wish I had filmed mounting the neck to the guitar. I just didn't have the camera on for that. There's several steps that, I'll be honest with you, I forgot to set the camera for, or turn it on rather. So I kind of regret that. And so I'm not going to go back and unbuild the guitar to show you that. Because this is in woodworking one of the most labor-intensive projects you can do. I've built a lot of furniture, a lot of projects, and a guitar will take you 30 hours of labor when you're hand building one guitar at a time. So it's not like you're going to start on a Saturday afternoon after lunch and build one before supper. And also my guitars, I don't do a whole lot of plans with them. I've got some basic drawings of what I want, but past that, it's all kind of cutting as you go and figuring as you go. I mean, some things are pretty standard, like the length of the neck. This is a 25.4 scale neck, which is kind of standard for the size guitar. 14 frets joined at the body. This guitar is fairly traditional, as you can tell in how it looks and the build of it. And again, we're getting down to the end of it. Meaning that after this, the assembly here, the next step will be to then start finishing the guitar. Tape off the neck, and I'll be using basically a shellac and wax finish, which is a very old traditional finish. What I like about shellac and wax is that you can repair it, whereas if you use a modern finish like a polyurethane, that's kind of like a plastic type finish, a little harder to repair. If you use lacquer, you can repair lacquer using lacquer sticks and a little bit of heat and what have you. But I like shellac because one coat melts into the other, provides a nice luster. It's just a beautiful traditional finish. So again, I thank you for watching this video, and hopefully have the final video out next week and you can see the final product. Again, thanks. Have a fine day.